Guys, I want to welcome you to another episode of the Franchise Advisory Board where we bring experts in from around the franchise industry, suppliers, brands, and anybody else, anybody in between, to give you actionable, practical advice that can help you to grow your franchise brand. And I've got with me a friend of mine, Tushar Mishra, and he is the co-founder and CEO of a brand called Delightree. If you're not familiar with them, they are the fastest growing franchisee operations platform in the industry. Incredible mobile first. We could nerd out about this maybe in another episode, right? About what they do, but they're interesting because they were built very in a very good framework that enables franchisees to dip right into the platform and get benefit immediately from day one. Think where ClientTether goes from like franchise lead to closed deal. Anything that happens after you onboard or you sign a franchise agreement, everything that needs to happen after that, store openers, things like that, like that's what they've built here, including LMSs and all sorts of great tools that's got AI infused into it. A couple of other things you may not know about Tushar, and which he was reluctant to tell me, but believe it or not, he was actually a heavy metal and still is a heavy metal enthusiast. He used to have long hair, thrashed and headbanged. Like if you ever hang out with him, you would be like, no freaking way, because he's so calm and
Yeah.
temperate and just relaxed. But Tushar, I'm grateful that you're here. Thanks for giving us some
Thank you.
time. Tell us more about you. Tell us about Delightry, and then we'll jump into our topic today.
No, absolutely. Thanks. Thanks a lot, Dave, for having me. My name is Tushar, one of the co-founders of Delightree. Actually, the way I ended up in franchising is pretty interesting. Before Delightree, I used to run a company called Surveyor. And that me and my co-founder, still my co-founder here at Delightree, started right out of college. And that was like our project. We were nerds. We did like a lot of NLP, data analytics and stuff. And we built out this algorithm that would analyze unstructured text data. And we built a bunch of scrapers. In my last company, we used to help restaurant chains, hotel chains, retail chains, and aggregating their customer reviews from different channels and giving them one dashboard where they could sort of look at those reviews and get some analytics around them.
Mhm.
And while we were sort of running that company, working with about 3,000 businesses, what we noticed was that even though we were giving out these insights that we thought were extremely helpful, none of our customers were actually taking actions on it. And the reason was what when we investigated and we learned in most companies, you have the marketing teams who are looking at these dashboard. Is there something interesting? They'll pass that out to the ops team to the regional manager, store owner, the guy working there, and there's no tracking of this happening. So that sort of got us super intrigued. And then when we exited Surveyor, sort of that led to the genesis of Delighttree and have been in love with franchising and multi-unit businesses ever since.
Yeah, well, you kind of described what happens every day in franchising. Great insight comes from the data and analytics, gets passed down to owners, gets passed down to frontline workers, and then sometimes nothing happens. So, yeah, it sounds
Yep.
like you found a good sweet spot where you can apply your skills to help fix that problem.
hmm Absolutely. No, it's been fun. So as we started building Delighttree, we knew that the first thing that we had to do was just talk to as many franchisors and as many franchisees as we can. And so the first product, I mean, a lot of people don't know this, but the first product that we built was just task management for franchisee owners. And
Mhm.
so a lot of our customers were just somebody who owned a few Subway locations, 7-Eleven locations, and they could basically sit at their couch and run like an opening and closing checklist and see if everything happened on time. And from that, when we launched that in 2021, to sort of just getting embedded in the industry, attending IFAs, going to as many events as we want, talking to amazing sort of leaders like you, we eventually learned and sort of built the platform that we have today, which is, again, the fastest growing platform within franchising, helping now 90 plus brands. So we're close to 5,000 locations now that we work with.
Mhm.
So pretty exciting and a lot of exciting things coming sort of into the fold to help the industry. So,
Yeah, well,
yep.
I've seen you guys grow very quickly, so it's been fun to see. And man, let's dive into some of the topic today with everyone, Tushar. We want to talk about the AI-driven franchise. And this is, guys, I'll just warn you, this is not a hype discussion. This is actual pragmatic stuff that's really working. Tushar sees it from the back end of dozens and dozens of brands. So hope you'll enjoy the insights he's got to share. Really, what we want to talk about is how do you use AI to scale franchise operations and profits? A lot of people, I mean, us included, are talking about how do you use AI to improve sales processes, et cetera. But really, it feels like kind of the bastard child of the industry sometimes with the attention and the investment and the money and the headcount is this operations side that really has a lot of opportunity to leverage AI. So Tushar, could you maybe start off by introducing us a little bit to this concept of what are some practical strategies for the way people could be leveraging AI on the franchise operations to create more success?
No, I think, and you gave a great intro. Like AI has been an important hype topic in the industry for a while. Every event that I go to, there are at least a few speakers who are talking about AI. But when it comes to practice, the only actual use case that I've seen is people using ChatGPT to create marketing collaterals, or on the consumer end, where people are maybe using automated callers and detecting calls and stuff like that, right? And what's unfortunate about this is that there's so much that AI can do today that directly helps your ops profitability and margins at the store level that most people either don't know about, don't speak about, or just don't know how to implement, right? So I thought this could be an interesting topic where we're not just discussing sort of what's going to happen in the future, but things that brands can do today. And this is not talking about you have to use Delightree to do that, but today with tools that already exist, right? And so with that being said, I want to start with the first thing, right? So when it comes to AI or anything AI, the most important thing that you as a business would have is data. So the first place to start here is within your ops, if you don't have data, which means that you don't have SOPs built out, you don't have any measurement of how franchisees are performing from an ops perspective. So that could be things like how frequent are they completing tasks, their franchise audits or store visit scorecards, your Google ratings, your employee attrition, maybe at the Z level.
Mhm.
All of this is going to be hard, right? So I think the first step is just getting a sense of what all data that you have and where all does it exist, right? So that becomes sort of the fundamental layer over which you'll sort of do everything.
Yeah.
Now from there, let's really start to break down operations from a things to do or things that you're supposed to do perspective, right? So the first thing that comes to mind that a lot of time ops teams are investing on is answering questions. And we've seen a bunch of solutions pop up that help you sort of automate support
Hmm.
in the
Yeah.
sense. And in this case, I'm specifically talking about your franchisee owner asks you, hey, this ad campaign that we're running this month, where do I find the collateral? Is it on my email? Is it on my drive? Where is it? And you call somebody, you get in touch with them, and sort of you get an output.
Hmm.
So the first use that I know some other companies in the segment are also doing, Easy Assist is a great example. Delightly does it. A bunch of other companies do it. Is really creating a data warehouse or a data lake of all of your SOPs so that you can automate answering some of these questions, right?
Yeah.
What that would mean is that when your owners are looking for an answer, your first layer of support becomes the answer that is generated from the material that already exists.
Hmm.
And this is something that's already in practice. Majority of our customers, so we within Delighttree have a tool called AI Search. Majority of our customers use AI Search, and they've been able to deflect over half of support requests and queries that come from um, owners directly to HQ, right? All the little things like how to do this, how to do that, where do I find this, all of that can be automated.
Wow. So I just want to go back for a second and make sure that we everyone understands what you're describing. Guys, your ops manuals, your SOPs, everything, you can feed it into the back end of an AI engine and then make sure that and feed it a bunch of FAQs so it understands how you want it to answer, like tone, style, etc. And then it can answer these questions for you. But I just want to highlight what you just said. You just said that for your clients using this tool set, this AI is a way to answer questions for franchisees. You're reducing the amount of questions that actually need to go to the franchisor by 50%.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Any
that's crazy.
FBC that you talk to, they would say that half of the requests or half of the questions that they get are things that already exist, but people don't know where to find them, or sometimes even FBCs don't know where to find them, right? And so you can automate like a bulk of that. And these are all the questions about where, how that already exist in the system. And the best part about doing this is any request that you're getting that does not exist in the system yet, you can now create a doc for that And over time, you're not just reducing it by 50%, but you're reducing it by 60%, 70%, 80%. Over time, it'll just be 5% of those requests coming to you. One way that I like to think about this, and our team sort of talks to a lot of franchisors every day, and we try to coach them, especially on these support tickets, right? So if you look at support that owners typically want, they fall in three main categories. So one is when owners are asking just about where certain things exist, right? They just want to find where's this training, where's this collateral, where do I find this specific information? The second category typically is about how I do certain things, right? So that's more about how do I make sure that I've hired like a new bunch of people? How do I make sure that they don't churn? Or I'm running this campaign, how do I optimize it, right? Things like that. And then third category is more request basis, right? So which means that when owners are asking you to do something. So I have a golf simulator franchisee, and I have a request that my simulator is not working and I need somebody from HQ to come and help me out.
Mhm.
The first category can today 100% be automated with AI, right? Over time, you can add more information and that gets automated. The second category, which is a little more nuanced, that requires more data, can, again, 50% or so be automated today.
Yeah.
We have a new, and I want to maybe talk about that towards the end, but we have a new module that's coming up that also automates a lot of insight generation and coaching specifically for owners. So
Hmm.
you can do that. And so the only thing now that you have to take care of is requests that are coming or for actions that you have to drive. So if you think of it from that framework and think for each of these buckets in my framework, what data exists and what all do I need to create in order to start automation, you can do that. And maybe one more thing that I want to add here. A lot of people, when they're thinking about this, they think about tooling, right? What do I use in order to do that? Obviously, there are some franchisee specific solutions exist, like the Easy Assist, a bunch of others. Um, but if you don't want to use that, if you still want to start and experiment this, my recommendation is make a custom GPT,
Mhm.
add some of your sort of request on that, and make that custom GPT available to some of your team members and start to experiment with it. Once you start to see that support requests are going down and people are getting value from it, then start to look out for a vendor.
Yeah, it's a great
Because,
recommendation.
yeah,
Yeah, because if
and
you go ahead, Tushar.
oh no, I was just saying a lot of times that specific sort of technique might not scale because you need permissions. And for example, you don't want to give that access for that engine to somebody who's in the frontline team, or say somebody who does not need that information. Like within my corporate team, I don't want to give like a marketing intern access to this so that they can search up, hey, how do I collect my royalties and what were sort of royalties for last month and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So when you want to scale, you obviously want more permissioning and you want sort of tighter security and stuff. And so you might want to go for a vendor. But before that, just to experiment, I mean, you can do it on your own, like in a day.
Yeah, yeah, in an hour, if you know what you're doing in either
Yep.
Perplexity, Chat GPT, whatever, you can build that out fast. Yeah,
Yep.
love
Yep.
that. Well, and that's just, it's kind of like, well, anyway, in the medical world, hey, you got a back problem. Let's put a cortisone shot in there, and if that makes it feel better, you know that we need to fix something in there.
Yep.
That's what you're doing. You're just kind of you're very lowbrow testing the concept and proving that it's going to have an impact. I love that. And one thing
Absolutely.
I want to highlight here, guys, from what I've seen work well in the industry, this works for franchisees across all aspects of their business. It doesn't matter what kind of business. If you're a home service business, if you're a restaurant, if you're any kind of a franchise model, a gym, a nutrition store, it doesn't matter. Franchisees have to have basic questions answered. And this is just an operating necessity. And if you want to be able to, I know in the industry they say you need probably one FBC per 30 brands. When you're younger, it's a little bit lower ratio because there are a lot more kinks you're working out. But I want to go back to something Tushar said here. You can upload your ops manual and whatever FAQs you've got, and that's a good starting point. But that's only going to get you to maybe 50%. Tushar mentioned this, but this is just key to AI, keeping it not just keeping it fresh, but keep continuing to close the gap between what does the AI know and how can it help, and what does your team know. How do you recommend, Tushar? that they build a process around adding new content. You mentioned this briefly, but I want to go back to it because this is a key step in really leveraging AI and building out what we used to call knowledge bases back in the day, which were self-serve kind of wikis. This is a way to really streamline that whole flow, but there's a methodology and a discipline to that. Describe that to the listeners today so they know how do they continue to close the gap using a tool like this for AI Q&A.
No, that's a great question, right? And every time we talk to a new business, and I'm specifically talking about business at a certain scale. Obviously, when you're small, still trying to figure stuff out. But even at larger businesses, you have this data extremely siloed. So you might have and I'll give you an example. A lot of people will listen to this and say, "Oh, shoot, we also have like a similar set of models." So you might have your ops manual in one place, which gives details around everything, how you open, how you close, how you do certain things. But think about different tools, products, machines that you use in their manuals, right? So, for example, if it's a restaurant, you have a point of sale system. Owners have questions about how to do certain things. Hey, this paper is not printing. How do I comp a customer, etc.? Where does that live, right? The third category then becomes, okay, I have my ops manual. I have sort of manuals of everything else in my store. This could be a machine. This could be a software system. But in addition to that, do I also have local laws, compliance, regulation that might be more industry specific? So if
Hmm.
it's a restaurant, do I also have knowledge base of HACCP and OSHA and different things that are relevant to certain franchisees, and can I cater them to their location? So for some location in California OSHA is more relevant rather than sort of federal OSHA, right? Some
Yeah.
of these things. So my recommendation is first, just take inventory of what you have, just and be honest with yourself for what you have. And that's why I started by saying even large scale brands don't have sort of this data figured out, but it's not that hard to sort of prepare this. It'll probably take you a few days to get inventory of all of them. Once you have them, create a one repository of those. And that could be, in today's world, LLMs are so good at like ingesting information. That could be in any format. So you could have some documents in PDF, some in Word, some could just be images, whatever you have, just put them in one single place. That could be a drive, that could be whatever you want to. My next step is, especially when you want to scale, if you're doing an experiment, probably that is enough. You feed that into a custom GPT and try that out with a few trusted people or franchisees that you have and play around with it. Once you want to scale, one important thing that you have to do in addition to that is label that data, right? Now, what that means is I'm not talking about fancy data labeling of what this means, what that means, but just label who this is relevant to and who can access this, right? So if I have my manual, everybody, including frontline teams, should be able to access that.
Hmm.
Versus
Yeah, I see.
certain parts in my manual, just the owner should be able to access, right? And so doing this is really important and would help you because you are basically teaching an LLM. Think of LLM as a child. You're
Mhm.
teaching an LLM who can you answer what to and who should you not answer when they ask a specific question, right?
Mhm.
And we've heard like these stories when companies got overexcited and started to use sort of AI internally, and somebody very junior could ask, "Hey, give me a list of all my customers," right? If you give them like access to POS and you teach them how to do that. So you want to avoid some of those mistakes. So I think on data, do that first. And then second is labeling. If you're working with a vendor, they can really help you do that and really define. For example, on Delightree,
Mhm.
we have a knowledge base. We're a little old school that way, where you can dump all the information in any format that you have.
Mhm.
Could be videos, could be audio, could be anything that you have. And we just ingest it and make the LLM learn according to whoever is asking the question so that they can get relevant responses.
Yeah.
And whoever the vendor that you're working with probably can help you do that.
Yeah, that's amazing. But most people don't think about labeling the data as far as access and also relevance. So how do you teach this LLM that it's going to be producing a relevant result? That really
Yep.
you gotta teach it, and then after time it'll start to learn on its own. That's the key.
Hmm.
You still have to train it. That's great. One of the things that you shared, Tushar, that I really like is thinking down the road. Like, how can, AI is great. How do you make it better? Really, that's the key. Is AI, the more specialized it is, and the more you train it, the better and better and better it can get. And that's not, I mean, that's been true for 15 years with
Yep.
AI back before we used to call it that. So
Hmm.
tell me a little bit about this. So when we're trying to, so we've talked about kind of the FAQ, Q&A, and unsiloing the data, getting even like your manuals in there. Or even one thing I want to share on that is before we go on, I forgot. This is a key thought: is you have different rules of operation in different states,
Yep.
and that's tricky. Especially things like, let's just talk about like surcharging, right? Surcharging is illegal in a
Hmm.
bunch of states. And in certain states, you have to follow certain protocols if you're going to do surcharging. Like you have to offer different payment methods in Georgia, or else it's illegal to surcharge anything. And there's a limit in some states of how much they can. So, feeding into the database, into the AI module that you're choosing to use, like the geographic information, where the laws change. Like you've got to be specific, and especially as you talked about California, it made me think of this. Like so many rules are so different in California. You've just uploaded a general operations manual. It's going to give bad advice to franchise owners because it won't know what's relevant for a geography. So you also have to make
Yep.
sure, because we're operating in different states with different rules, that you've got that data tagged inside the system so the system can spit back accurate data, or it knows it has to ask a qualifying question of, oh, which state do you operate in? Then it can give you
Hmm.
relevant data. So those are things I just add to what Tushar said to make sure you're getting
No,
good data for the right.
absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a great point. Then I think before you close this thought, I think the last thing to really hone down on, especially on the Q&A answering and all that bit, is think about what is the form factor or where do your employees or your owners access this, right? Do you
Yeah.
want them, if you're experimenting, that's just a custom GPT, you can create a team account, add your sort of a few owners that you're testing it with, and just use sort of on the mobile or on the web app, chat GPT to sort of do that. But if you want to do it at scale, you also have to think about, am I introducing another tool now that people would sort of query? If they get a response to do X, now where does the action for X happen? Is that another tool that I'm using?
Hmm.
So think of, where do people access it? Are you solving the problem, or are you creating one more problem now where people have to figure out sort of, okay, I ask here, but then I do there, or it says, okay, it exists in this drive when I go and try to access it, but I don't have permission to sort of access the drive. And so think about some of these things as well, especially on the accessibility side. How do you actually make it usable for your team?
Yeah, a very relevant point. In fact, it's just as important as managing who's got access to what data is what's the experience where how do they gain access to it? And I'll give you an example that comes to my mind. If you want to well, let's say a franchise owner is trying to accesses this custom GPT we're talking about. This is where scalability comes in, but it's a great test.
Yep.
They go to the special link that you provide them, so they can open up a chat session and get an answer. While in that answer, it turns out that the GPT can't answer the question. Well, now they have to log into another system to submit a ticket to and
Yep.
this whole process of having to exit one system, go to another system, it creates a lag, but also a drop-off point. Sometimes people don't have a whole lot of patience for that, and so they'll just say, "Screw it, I'll figure it out on my own," or I'll do it later, and then they forget, so they never end up asking the question that's critical for their business. So that form factor of saying, "How do we converge? How do we create a uniform experience where I can get answers to my questions through this AI tool, and if I can't, then I can immediately submit a ticket, or I can immediately get in contact with the team member that I need to, or like that type of an experience is critical to make sure AI
Yep.
fits in alongside the whole support infrastructure. It's not you're not creating yet another silo of technology.
Hmm. Yep. Yep.
Well,
Absolutely.
Tushar, there are a bunch of things that we ought to see if we can talk about today, but I'm guessing we're probably going to run out of time. So what if you don't mind, maybe let's talk about two other areas where you've seen AI that can be used very well. One is in automating franchisee onboarding and training, and we've talked about the kind of the Q&A, just the daily minutia of the FBCs. But let's talk about training and onboarding, and let's talk about using AI to predict franchisee performance and even reducing churn. You kind of hinted at that a few minutes ago, but I think we ought to talk about that. So, do you mind sharing like what are you seeing, what's working in each of those areas? Let's start first with the franchisee onboarding and training.
Yeah, no, I mean, both of these spaces are so interesting and so few people are on it. I mean, it gets me very excited. We can nod on this a lot, but let's start with onboarding and training, right? And so when it comes to franchisee onboarding or opening a new location, most businesses have a very weird process, right? So they will have something internally, maybe a project management solution that they're using, but there's nothing that the owner or the new owner is interfacing with. And imagine that's the first experience that the owner has coming to the brand. You want to make sure that's consistent, that's tight, they can get any help that they need. But today, sort of that's broken, right? And then second, sort of on onboarding and second part of onboarding is training. So one, you first need to figure out how to train the owners, but you also need to think about how do I empower this owner to now train employees,
Mhm.
and not just once, but probably every quarter or every month, because the attrition is going to be high depending on the industry that you're in, right? And so there are a few things that we've seen. People get a lot of success, especially on the onboarding and training bit. Let's talk about onboarding first. Creating a rule set which clearly maps out your onboarding process. For example, this needs to happen, then that, this specific thing cannot happen without this. For example, I cannot get start on my training before I get my fire safety certification, right? And that could be one of your processes.
Mhm.
Now, how do you sort of map that out and roll that out to your franchisee becomes important. And where AI can help is that now instead of the new prospective owner being clueless about what to do next, they have a companion that they can talk to and can tell them exactly what to do next, why they cannot do certain things, and why certain things have to be done before doing a certain thing, right? And then you can go one step further and try to add more details on each process. So let's take this fire safety sort of check example, right? And so I'm an owner and I need to get a fire safety inspection done before I can attend this training that the brand has built out. Now, the agent would tell me, hey, you need to complete this first. I don't know how to do it. Here are two preferred vendors that the brand listed. You can talk to them to sort of get the inspection done, or get the right resources. And then once that's done, it automatically triggers somebody in my team to sort of kick off my training. So that's when you can create a really tight sort of onboarding experience for new owners that also scales, right? So
Mhm.
that doesn't mean that you need new people, and for every new franchisee that you add, you probably need to add resources. It means with one resource properly mapped out, you can add hundreds and hundreds of franchisees that are opening sort of on time, on schedule, and with proper experience for the owner and your team members.
Yeah.
Second, specifically on training, one big disconnect sort of in the industry about training is e-learning became popular, right? And
Mhm.
everybody sort of jumped on that train and created these beautiful looking courses that you have to go through in order to learn, that became available to frontline teams. The problem with that is that's not how most people learn today, right? If you talk to a 18-year-old, they
Uh-huh.
would say, hey, the way that I learn is I skim through information, and then when I need to, I'll just search Google or ask ChatGPT or just search that information, right? And get it when I need to. And that's something we what we call just-in-time training.
Mhm.
Now with AI, you can really customize just-in-time training for your new owners in a way that they can learn not just faster, but better, which ultimately delivers a better sort of experience to your end user or your end customer. As an example, I start off working sort of as a cashier. I need to learn everything about the point of sale system. Now, instead of going through that large e-learning course and try to remember everything, what if AI can just recommend 90% of the times you'll be doing five of these things? So
Mhm.
I'll teach you these five things so that you know, okay, how to add order, how to cancel order, how to like, here's the greeting that you need to do. So I'm going to learn that. Everything else, when I need to, I can just ask and quickly learn.
Yeah.
So now there's a special case, somebody screwed up and I need to comp the customer and I don't want them to charge anything. I don't know how to do that. Here's where I can use AI to quickly ask, right? If there's sort of a
Mhm.
device in the store, some of our customers are experimenting with that. So if you use a tool like Delightree, you can just ask, hey D, how do I comp a customer, and get a response quickly. And you do that. So you're not spending a lot of time and just paying employees to learn when you know they're not actually learning, but getting them to do work. And then as they're working, they learn as they go. Another interesting thing
Yeah.
that we do specifically on Lightree is learning with actions, right? So you're not just watching a bunch of videos and answering questions, but as you are sort of on your first day, on your second day, on your third day, You're doing actions, clicking pictures, adding videos, so that you're doing by learning. And then your colleague can sort of mark them, evaluate them as sort of you go and become sort of a ramped employee.
I love that. So I don't know if you know this, but I spent a bunch of time in the L&D industry, and then I spent a bunch of time in the language industry, localizing and globalizing people's learning content. And I just want to back up what Tushar is saying. Like it's important that you make your learning modules interactive. So many of the times, like here, read this PDF. Guess what an 18-year-old's never going to do in their life? Read a PDF to learn how to do something. They just won't do it. And you have to serve up microscopic data parcels, right? Like you have to be able to break it down in a way that they can consume it. And even a 3-minute video segment is a turnoff. Like you got to figure out what is the learning bite? How can I make this bite sized? What are the learning components? And then you have to have a module, something they'll recommend. I love that using the AI to say, look, 90% of the people, they need these 5 things. So I'm going to recommend you watch those first. If that doesn't answer your question, ask me something else. Like I love the idea of infusing AI into the back end of the data to learn how people are engaging with the content and then serving up the most relevant content first. Guess what does that already and what this next generation is used to? Apple Music.
Yep.
Every single thing they consume, right? Netflix and
Everything,
Amazon. Yeah.
Netflix, YouTube. Yeah.
Yeah. So but
Uh,
why
and,
should
and
learning be the same? You know, learning should be the
yep,
same.
absolutely. And one thing I'll add here is, especially on like when you mention languages and localization, I think that's very important. Today that problem is solved. You can have your learning courses, teaching courses in any language that you want, and I can access them in any language that I'm comfortable in. So I could be at a store, and customers do that with Delighttree today. You could be at a store, you don't know how to speak English, you just speak Spanish. All of my SOPs, my manual, my material is written in English, but I can still ask a question in Spanish and get a response in Spanish and still get my work done. And that is, I mean, you don't need to use Delightly for that. There's so many tools sort of to help you do that today, but that is a solved problem today. So you can actually have multiple languages, courses, people speaking them, and you can just get stuff done.
Yeah, it's amazing. It didn't exist before. Didn't exist before. Tell us in the last few minutes we've got to Shar. Tell us a little bit about can people use how should people start thinking about using AI to predict franchisee performance and even churn?
That is my favorite topic, and maybe let's spend some time on it. So the first thing that you have to do in order to actually get this right, and actually start to use this, is going to my first point: get data in place. It's going to be hard if you have one tool that you're using for doing audits, another tool that you're using for tasks, another tool that you're using as your LMS, and then you have something else for scheduling. You need to figure out how to either get them to talk to each other or create a data warehouse where you can dump all the data coming in from all these tools,
Mm,
right? So let's just assume that you have this data warehouse where you've dumped all the data that you have. And when I say all the data, I mean any tools and system that you use. It includes your POS, that includes QuickBooks that your franchisee owners are using, where your P&L lies, everything.
mhm,
Now, once you have that, and some people have already might have tried that. Have you ever tried uploading like a Excel file on ChatGPT and asking it to analyze that and giving you some insights out of that? It's actually pretty good at that now. So 4.1, which is specifically an analytics model, can actually look at insights and tell you exactly what's hidden in the data.
mhm,
Now you can actually do that for franchisees at scale.
mm,
Traditionally, FBCs have been sort of focused in doing that. So if you're a good FBC or if you're an excellent FBC, what you would do is before meeting each franchisee, you'll make sure that you know everything about them. You have the right data, the right stuff. So when you're coaching, you're actually coaching and not just, hey, you did this wrong, or you need to do this better and turn that into a blame game.
mhm,
Today, what you can do is, so imagine if I'm an FBC, before I go to a meeting, I just ask AI, hey, what should I be talking about today? What AI would do is it'll search through my last audit score, it'll search through my revenue, compare that to same time last year, compare that to my peers, you look at my attrition, you look at my Google reviews, you look at task completion, and look at training completion, all of that and find patterns and tell me exactly what I need to talk about.
mhm,
So my response could be that this specific location scored very low on these specific things on an audit. Say they scored low on cleanliness on an audit. By the way, Google reviews are also talking about that. And within their peers, their revenue is lower than all of them, right? Now I have proper talking points and data that I can take to the FPC, to the owner and talk to them about with
Mhm.
actual actionable sort of insights that they can do today. Sort of, okay, cleanliness is an issue because I see attrition is really high with your staff members. Why is attrition high? Oh, I see training completion rate is low. Okay, what kind of training are you doing? Oh, by the way, this training, we have this new training that you can introduce to sort of do that. Now, instead of just saying that my revenue is down or my store is not clean, I'm getting to the root cause of that problem and actually coaching the owner and working with the owner to solve the problem, right?
Well,
That's just
yeah.
one example.
Mm.
Now, this is something that a lot of people have been wanting to do, a lot of enterprises are doing. Seems like way into the future, but it's already there. We have a module right now that we are piloting with a few customers that we launch soon that does exactly this, right?
Wow.
Which is how do you amend your FPC? So going back to your first point, one FPC should, for every 30 locations, should have one FPC. I say, why not for every 300 location, you have one FPC, but that one FPC now can do that job really, really, really well, right? And so um, and this is again to one of the flaws of or when people get excited about AI, they want to automate everything.
Yeah.
And I've never seen it working when you try to, again, you don't want to automate the coaching layer. You don't want that personal touch to go away. Somebody who's a partner to you, especially an owner, you don't want them to talk to a robot all the time. You want an FPC, you want a person, but you want to empower that person now to be able to do that job 10x faster or 10x easier so that they can do it with 10x more locations, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I know. I'll pause here. We can talk about this all day, but
Yeah.
this bit is pretty exciting, and I see in the near future, I think in the next couple of years, more and more franchisors will start to use this, and you'll see this tectonic shift in how the relationship between Z and Zor plays out, because it'll be less about he said, she said, and more about sort of actual data that you can both work towards solving.
It's funny you said that. I was going to interject and say something similar in that we we live in a world right now where franchisors and franchisees often have a lot of tension between them. And sometimes it's because we're not speaking from the same playbook. The franchisee sees it from one perspective, franchisor sees it from another. But the one thing that is universal and is not arguable is the data, right? So if you're using objective data to give coaching advice or behavior change or behavior modification training, whatever you're trying to do with it, it's a lot harder for the franchisee to push back on it. And we see that from our perspective on the selling side, the franchisee performance side on revenue generation all the time. The FBCs are relieved that they can look at data and then call and say, hey, it looks like compared to your peers, blah, 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 right? But being able to amalgamate that data and then have the AI essentially spit out almost a script for the FBC to say, look, you need to call Bob about X, Y, Z. Like these are the three things Bob needs help with. And this is how Bob stacks up against his peers in region. This is how Bob stacks up against his peers in his age demographic, like how long they've all been franchise owners. Like I know for some franchise systems, there are sometimes one or two full-time people trying to generate that data and information so they can have insights to coach with. This can all
Yep,
be done very easily with a button click now if, like Tushar said, you get your data lined up so then AI can read it and interpret it and take action on it and then give your FBCs what they need to take their actions. And I don't disagree with the
absolutely.
personal touch. We can't lose that because people, as much as AI is awesome, people still want people to interact with. You don't get any sort of emotional kick from the or chemical kick in your brain from AI interactions like you do with people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And uh, I know I'm repeating myself, but I'll say these two things again. So you have to be careful about who can access that data. So you need that sort of labeling on the data side done really well,
Mm.
especially when you have this much data and it could be dangerous, right? Like when people can access everything or you're letting AI access everything. So how do you gate that properly to certain people, to certain roles, to certain context? And second, when you have the insight, now how do you connect that with actions? So
Hmm.
think about both these things. If you're just getting that spit out response in chat GPT, are you able to, is that changing anything for you? Because you're still going to do the same thing. I'm going to send a Slack to my ops manager. My ops manager is going to send like a text message to my regional manager to the owner, and it's not going anywhere. So also think of how do you close the loop by actually bringing actions into the fold, and what are some tools and what are some solutions that can help you do that in a more sort of consistent way, creating a unified solution.
Yeah, it's great feedback. Yeah, because at the end of the day, all this data, all these insights, they are meaningless if they don't change behavior. And that's the
Yep.
hard part. So beautiful. And that's where the human personal touch can come in as well. As, hey, here is
Yep.
the insight. This is what we talked about. Steve, I don't see that you've taken any action on that. Like how do you know, you can see it in the data. So I love that. And that's where coaches can really coach, right? Their whole title is to coach, but you're not doing a lot of
Yep.
coaching if all you're doing is data analysis and chasing your tail, answering basic questions, which again, AI can do way better than them anyway.
Yep. Absolutely.
Well, I know Tushar, we're a little tight on time now. Tell me, any parting thoughts on where you anticipate people can see the greatest lift right now from leveraging AI in their franchise operations? Like, if they had to pick one of the three things we talked about today, where should somebody start?
So that's a great question, and I'll start by saying where not to start, right? So where not to start is you getting excited about AI and everybody's using AI, and I have this FOMO and I just want to use AI, right? Don't do that unless you're starting with a proper business outcome. And we've done that. Everybody has done that. We have to start with a business outcome. Pick out whatever is the first priority for you. Some of these are harder to do. Some of these are easier to do. Some of these you need the right vendor. Obviously, I want to say reach out to us and we can help you do all of this. But that's not the point of this. I would say pick out which one is priority one for you, and then also rank them in order of difficulty. Which means I can do the answering and sort of that bit, but I don't have data, so it's going to be very difficult for me. I can do the training bit, but it's not a priority for me, but it's easier to do, right? So do that, create a matrix, see what is higher in priority and easier to do, and start with that.
Hmm.
I always recommend start experimenting in a very low cost manner. Today, you can do it absolutely for free. Experiment with a few of your owners and see that's actually helping you get to the business outcomes. For example, if I want to automate my support, I can again create a custom GPT,
Hmm.
tell three of my owners, hey, we're experimenting with this. Let's try using this for a week and see if like your questions are getting answered or not. They're getting answered, and I can sort of see and put it in a sheet that okay, number of requests I was getting before, number of requests I'm getting now. Now you know it's solving the problem and you can allocate budget to it, which makes sense. So you can say, okay, I want to scale this to all my 100 locations, and I can now properly create that sort of budget and what it would mean for me if I can reach that outcome. So that's what I would say. Just start with the business outcome, not just with AI, and go step by step in a simple manner. There are a lot of like smart people I know, Dave. They can reach out to you if they need help. They can reach out to me. But yeah, with some of this stuff, it's easy to get started, like at your home, just on your computer.
Hmm. I agree. That's one of the beauties of what's shifting in AI. It's kind of like access to being literate back in the day. Like, yeah,
Yep.
nobody had access to learn how to read, and so only very few people had access to the data. But it was like that with AI. Only specific people who had massive amount of money could access AI. And now it's not that way. Anyone can do it.
Yep.
So I love that. Tushar, you've given us a lot of good insights today. If somebody wants to reach out to you or connect with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
The best way is go to delighttree.com, delighthree.com. Reach out to us. We'll be available if you want to reach out directly to me. It's my first name, Tushar, Tushar, at delighttree.com. I answer almost all my emails. So if you have any questions, you don't have to talk about Delighttree. Even if you want to talk about AI and how you set up a certain experiment, I'm happy to help.
Yeah, I figured you'd say something like that. Tushar, you're awesome. Thanks for making time to share some of those insights with us and get a little bit deeper into like reality within AI and how it can be applied. I sure appreciate you doing that today.
Absolutely. Thanks. Thanks a lot, Dave. It was great chatting with you.